Hello there, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Inflow Communications webinars. And this is a series that we're focusing on customer engagement. And today's topic specifically, we're talking about automating customer engagement. And when I think about automating customer engagement, it really is about bringing applications together. We'll get through the details on this in just a few moments, but let's take a look at some of our upcoming events. Later this week on the 29th at 10 a.m. Pacific, we will have a Mitel ShoreTel 14 to connect migration discussion, what to expect. And then on August 4th, which is the following week on Tuesday, we will be doing Ring Central user training. So with that said, let's go ahead and get into our outlining agenda for today's presentation. As always, if we run out of time or you have questions that you feel are better suited to be handled offline, please reach out to us at the following phone number or email. If you have questions for me, I will stop incrementally for questions to address any questions, but if you have some thoughts or processes you'd like to discuss one-on-one, I'm happy to help anybody, whether or not you're a customer and it's a pro bono. I've spent anywhere from 30 minutes to 2 hours with customers and non-customers alike. In fact, I've spent 2 hours with non-customers. For me, it's about experience and education. I've been in the industry for about 25 plus years, and I just like to share my knowledge. So here's the contact information here. By way of introduction, my name is Chris Riccio. I'm the Director of Contact Center and Advanced Applications here at Inflow Communications, and I've been in the industry about 25 years, spent quite a bit of time on the design technical side, as well as managing a large contact center. And then with me moderating, or at least being an assistant today, is Luis Salceda, who is a sales project coordinator with 7+ years experience. So Luis, if you'd like to say hello, now is your time.
Thank you, Chris. Hello, everyone. Everybody. Hope you enjoyed today's webinar. It will be, I think it will be awesome today.
Thanks, Luis. And as always, if you've attended our webinars before, we will follow up at the end of our discussion today with a link to the webinar as well as the presentation material for today so that you have something to review. So by way of our agenda, we're going to cover these topics here. We're going to talk about automating customer engagement. We will go into an internal audit and discussion about the things you should look for in your environment when you're mapping out automating your customer engagement strategy. Also, assessing available features. I think this is a critical aspect of it in terms of understanding what you have available to you. Then we're going to get into building and designing the flow process, which will include a real discussion and flow process with one of the customers that I've helped work with. And then we'll end up with a summary and Q&A. So let's start with who is Inflow Communications. For those of you that are here today, you probably have seen communication from Inflow Communications recently, either via email or some other medium. And we are solely focused on unified communications and contact center solutions. We're not interested in selling everything under the sun as many of our contemporaries do. We are flatly focused on UC and contact center solutions. We've made a pivot to contact center solutions in the last 5 years, really focusing our expertise on helping customers grow that part of their market and operations. We are a ShoreTel Mitel Platinum partner, a Ring Central partner, and a Genesis Pure Cloud or Genesis Cloud partner. As far as Genesis goes, we are a gold partner, which we are the top 2 tiered in the US, number 5 internationally. We have offices and employees in several states, across 10 states, in fact. We support over 200,000 endpoints, and we have over 800 customers supported nationwide and worldwide. Some of those clients have a global footprint down into Brazil, Honduras, Philippines, Germany, and the UK. And ultimately, if you're here and you know Inflow Communications or have had a great experience of working with us, we're maniacal about customer experience and customer support. That's what our focus. We believe that customers should get the best service and support no matter your interaction with us or anyone in our facility. So hopefully that's been your experience. Just by way of giving you a quick overview, these are some of the customers that you probably recognize their names: Domino's, Zillow, ThyssenKrupp, who has an international footprint, Driscoll's, just a quick smattering of some of our top tier clients. And so with that being said, let's get into our discussion today, automating customer engagement. Now there's quite a bit of detail in the topic we're going to discuss today. And for those of you that have been attending these webinars over the last 3 to 4 months, I've been talking quite a bit about customer engagement and applications that you're likely going to leverage. Today, I want to talk about the pieces to help you look at and to navigate, to help you plan mapping and the strategy from the application point of view with a mindset on automation. So as we know with customer engagement, our goals are always to nurture the customer relationship. Ultimately, when you nurture the relationship, you're going to create customer loyalty. At least that's the plan. Now, when I think about customer engagement, it's likely that you've experienced customer engagement interactions from various retailers, credit card companies, finance, and likely healthcare. On the left side of my screen, it's really about a commitment to ongoing communication. And what that communication is often siloed into things such as upselling the customer, making a sale, offering more discounts to sell them more, et cetera. And I think clients are getting used to that. But because of that, I think customers and service providers are looking to their customers and wanting to build longer term relationships. Some of the standard things in addition to upselling is appointment reminders or event reminders. Those seem to be pretty standard fare, or basic account updates. Now shifting to the right side there, a lot of clients are enhancing their services with real-time account activity. I'm a big proponent of texting, and no matter what sort of services I have, I opt in for any sort of text communication across a wide variety of my credit card holders, my banks, where I have my credit cards, and my accounts, whether it's retail or healthcare. I'm interested in being connected to information because that's how I live and breathe in the world. And ultimately, if it makes it easier for me, I'm likely to stay with that provider. Another part that I look for is I really appreciate when the provider gives me educational information about how to navigate their systems, or just simple, hey, did you know options, either product related or maybe it's industry related. And that goes alongside with providing ongoing knowledge and adoption of products and services. Oftentimes, if you're a provider of services, you probably have a suite of processes and products that you offer to your clients, and continually advising your clients of what's available and how to use the features helps extend how their adoption and how they're using your products and services, with the idea that the deeper your client gets in with you, the longer term relationship you'll have with them. And that's good for everybody, both for planning growth and keeping your business afloat. And ultimately, when I think about customer engagement, the last bullet here is what I really bank on: an easy way to access information. I just took my dog to the vet this morning. I was able to log into an application, confirm my appointment. I was told where to line up. Obviously, with the COVID right now, everything is social distancing. But I appreciate the fact that the information was ready, available at my fingertips without having to contact their customer service or their front desk. So that's sort of like an overview. Let's talk about automating customer engagement. The first thing that I think I want to say is that the customer engagement strategy, although we've been talking about it as something that just should be easy peasy, there's actually a lot of pieces that we need to orchestrate and that we'll want to review as part of setting up our automation. And that includes process management and data integration and bringing all these pieces together. So likely, one of the first things we think about when we think about customer engagement is our contact center. And ultimately, we all have contact center applications. But when we talk about customer engagement, you are likely going to be using your contact center application and applications beyond the contact center, but intersect with the contact center. A likely fallback application will be your CRM. Now, everyone has a CRM or a semblance of a CRM. Ultimately, and I've said this for years, the CRM is where you have your database information. And oftentimes when I'm thinking about automating customer engagement, we are starting to see more applications, especially CRM applications, provide application hooks so that the CRM can communicate and do sophisticated things such as outreach and engagement. Those are some those that I've seen the tremendous growth in when you think about things such as Salesforce, HubSpot, or if you're using Marketo. Those tend to be marketing applications, but Microsoft Dynamics, ServiceNow, they all have workflow mechanisms, and oftentimes those allow us to have a webhook somewhere. which takes us to the next process. When you're talking about process management and customer engagement, you're likely going to be looking at web services. Some web services may be required, but don't let that dissuade you or give you a sense that it's really a lot of uplift to make it happen. There are plenty of applications out in the real world that I will at least gloss over today to give you a sense of where you might find probable plugins. And I use the term plugin to signify that it's really tailored to allow you to interconnect applications with sort of the easy approach. And then ultimately, no matter what contact center solution you have, you're likely going to need to leverage adjacent technologies. And this is sort of where I get into workflow management, workflow processes. And what leads us down that pathway is when perhaps you're working on a legacy contact center solution and you're not looking to replace it, but you need to augment it. That's where an adjacent technology might be a great probable resource when you think about the automation game. Ultimately, when you're planning your process management and data integration, you want to plan for response and feedback. I think this is one of the critical pieces. When we think about customer engagement, all too often folks think about it as being a one-way communication. But more and more, the minute you send a communication, and I'm speaking specifically of text, to a client, they're going to want to naturally or instinctively respond. So having a pathway to automate the response or to do something different with the response, I think is a critical aspect that's often overlooked in the customer engagement flow process. Next, you'll want to think about reporting and documenting the activity. It's critical nowadays to really understand what your customer's experience has been, and ultimately it's going to fall back into, I need to put that information back into my CRM or some reporting process. Now, when we start talking about adjacent technologies, or if you happen to be on a legacy product or that doesn't give you, for example, texting and you need to leverage a third party, we're going to also need to start thinking about, well, how do I bring the reporting into one place? Ultimately, my mantra is always, before you make a determination as to products, think about the reporting, because we have to understand how we want that reporting. Next, when I talk about response management and feedback loops as you open up dialogue with clients through a process of customer engagement, make it easy to access staff or agents or account managers. One of the clients that I'll be showing you an example of, they absolutely use the data in a multitude of fashions, and I hope the example gives you a broader perspective in terms of customer engagement, what that 360-degree view might look like. And then ultimately, when it comes to automation, you may also be looking to leverage bots and artificial intelligence or other technologies. Now, that's not to say it would be a one-dimensional process. Hey, I get a response, let's have a bot handle that. I think it's about orchestrating the pieces where it logically makes sense. Now, I'm going to make a statement that probably makes some folks uncomfortable that sell products, but I don't think automation for the sake of automation is the goal. I think strategically planning your automation thoughtfully, you'll have a better opportunity for success. So as you can see here, automating customer engagement asks us to look at several sides of the equation, but once you've done that work and you're out in the real world deploying your customer engagement, the cycle for your customers' engagement becomes so much more easy and easier to think about. So let's talk about a starting point. When we're looking to set up automating our customer engagement process, the first thing I always say is do an internal assessment. We've got to understand what processes we have. And the reason I put this here is because it's my experience over the last 25 years, clients that have technologies maybe are using 30 to 40% of the technologies. And it's fascinating to me how many clients are not working with their service providers or their software providers to continually expand utilization and adoption of their products. It's just something we should spend time looking at. So review existing applications, especially application features. I also find that clients weren't aware that they had certain feature sets available to them, or at least certainly we plant the seed to ask questions that may then beg for IT to think about how we can facilitate that. So certainly when we're looking at applications, you're going to look at your contact center solution. Your contact center solution may have some built-in processes that are quite advantageous for us, and the two that I would be looking for would be dialer processes. Now, when I say dialer, I'm really talking about open outbound processing. When I say dialer, I do not mean a phone call. I mean the collective communication styles, whether it's email, texting, or phone calls. Also look at your CRM or your EMR or marketing applications. Now, here's what I'm starting to see with many CRMs, there's lots of workflow processes being built, and some are even extending it further to calling themselves a contact center. And I don't believe they're fully contact center capable, but they're sort of going in that direction. But look at your CRM. Look under the hood. If you're a Salesforce environment, a Microsoft Dynamics environment, HubSpot, Marketo, those are likely products that have workflows in the background that allow you to leverage and automating customer engagement strategies. Some of those applications also include web services processes already built in, such as messaging, sending a text. I know it's very common now from a CRM or Salesforce to send a text message or an email from within that application. Also look at the workflow tools buried behind the CRM. Or if your CRM isn't extending to workflow processes just yet, or maybe it's limited to just a project phasing sort of, meaning dropping the work or interactions into a bucket, look at external applications that are interconnected with those CRMs. In other words, they have existing integrations that can read data in your CRM in real time so that when you make a client update or open a ticket, it automatically senses the change and then will send an automated email or a text. And that's where the adjacent technologies come in. Now, we couldn't do what we would do with customer engagement without access to data. So a good place to review is, where's my data and how can I access it? CRMs are always sitting on a database. And inside the CRM, there's usually an application where you can build lists of information, either for account management purposes, follow-up purposes, or portfolio management purposes. For those of you that are in that space, or just in general customer client care, this should not be something that's new to you, and it should be in the application. Most applications that are CRM based give you the user the option to export information based on criteria that is selected. Then look at your output options. When you're looking at your CRMs or applications, look to find out what are your options for output. Most applications allow you to export it to an Excel. Most applications, if you can do Excel, can also do a CSV. And in some cases, your output options are push the data directly to another application. This one is where I see a lot of growth inside of workflow tools, CRMs, et cetera. But look at your options. Understand what those options are, because your options are going to define what's your next logical step. When you're looking at options, make a distinction between which are manual processes and which are automated processes. Now, while we're talking today is about automating customer engagement, sometimes automation doesn't mean 100% end-to-end automation, but you have a sense of control. So there may be a process that you need to manual. It's not always necessary to automate the entire process. In some cases, it might be better to manually pull data or run the process based on certain information or control mechanisms. So what features are available in current solutions? Now, when we talk about contact center solutions, there's a wide variety of features. These are the common pieces that I look for in a solution as a starting point. Number one, I mentioned earlier, outbound campaigns and web services. Now, when I talked about an outbound campaign, I'm not talking about robocalls. We know the history of telemarketing and robocalls and sales calls. What I am talking about is an outbound campaign. The old school of outbound used to be just phone calls. Nowadays, contact center solutions are leveraging outbound campaigns for voice calls, obviously, but also for texting and messaging campaigns, as well as email campaigns. Now, one of the benefits that I look for when I'm looking at an outbound process in a contact center solution, does it have the ability to also run a web service as part of the outbound? This is where I see we can gain some additional advantages in making the system or allowing the system to doing more creative things. When I look at the outbound campaigns, is there a scheduling mechanism, or does it allow you to do a cyclical process every Tuesday, every Wednesday, every hour? Or do you have the ability to do one-offs or a combination of all the above? Most outbound applications and processes give you the capability to do all of the above. And then when you get to that point, you're typically going to run daily campaigns, workflow campaigns, and portfolios. It's all about listing and pulling the lists into the data into lists for list management. Now, when I when I think about and look at contact center solutions, I'm always interested in the IVR as well. Most of the time we think of IVR as a flow process, and this would be used in the outbound process as well. Sometimes making real-time decisions such as, let me try a phone call, but the last time we tried a phone call, it didn't go through, so let's ignore that and do a text instead. Some sort of real-time decisioning could be valuable in terms of navigating which type of communication you're going to send out. Web services and data connectors usually are part of an outbound strategy, and that gets us back into extracting information either directly from a CRM or a database. Oftentimes, we won't connect directly to CRM, but offload the data into a database first as a staging table, but those are things to consider. And then ultimately, SMS campaigns and bots. I think bots early on have gotten a negative connotation in terms of they're difficult to navigate, et cetera. And this is where I say, don't deploy automation for the sake of automation. Do it strategically where it makes the most sense. Next, when you're looking at your CRM solutions, take advantage of workflow events, triggers, and a lot of the things that we discussed previously about emails and SMS. I'm seeing more and more CRMs build that into their strategy, not only as an inbound process, but as a triggering workflow mechanism. And then, of course, portfolios and account management is all part of that. Now, when I'm looking at features inside a contact center solution, as I said before, your contact center solution may not be an all-in-one solution where it has all the pieces of the puzzle, but this is where you can lean on third-party solutions. Now, the third-party solutions I use are specifically solutions that are easy to create a user account and easy to integrate. And what I particularly look for is that application doing most of the heavy lifting, especially when it gives me options such as connecting directly to Salesforce or my CRM. And if I can't connect directly to a CRM, can I connect to an Excel spreadsheet or inside Google spreadsheets if you're using Google Sheets? Those are the things I'm looking for. The advantage with adjacent technologies, just as you might suspect, there are lots of cloud options out there for messaging. Texting that'll read your data directly from an Excel spreadsheet. So if you don't have an application that does it all, you likely can bring in other applications at minimal expense, and they're really geared for the non-technical users. So you want to take a look at some third-party applications, and I'll show you here in a moment a couple of them that I particularly like. Most of the third-party applications and adjacent technologies are API-driven, and that offers you events and triggers. For example, I have one that I'm using now. When an inbound call comes in, it hits a web service inside that service that then sends a text message over to the account manager, or I can send it into Slack or a communication instant messaging piece. That lets the user know in real time, hey, your VIP customer just called or is currently in the queue. Many provide active integrations to very common applications. And I think this is a tremendous advantage for clients that are sort of slowly moving into customer engagement. I'm a big fan of bringing in small ancillary apps that are intended to plug in. Some things to consider when looking at third-party applications. Consider customer response management. What do I mean by that? You know, if you send a text or an email from a third-party application, what's my response going to happen? What's going to happen to my response when my customer responds? So for example, if I get a text message, my inclination is to respond. Having a way to intercept that communication to respond is going to be important to think about. The next piece is reporting. Because a third-party application is on the outside, we want to make sure we have access to the statistical information. Who did we contact? What was their response? What was the message? That sort of thing, so we can marry it back into our CRM or system of record. The applications that I particularly like, and I know you've seen this slide before if you've looked at or seen these, attended my presentations. I'm specifically talking about on the third part of my screen on the left, workflow and triggers. My two favorite applications, Zapier. Go to the website, check it out. They have built-in integrations that allow me to do things such as look at a Google spreadsheet and send a text when there's an update to some information. If you're using HubSpot or Salesforce or Microsoft Dynamics, if an account updates or a new ticket is open, automatically send my customer a text message with the details. Tray.io is another application that works very similarly to Zapier. So I put two options up here just to give you a sense of two probable pieces where you'll find some really good applications that are easy to navigate and build a strategy. Now, both of these applications use Twilio to navigate a text message. Now, if you're wondering about data and where can I put data or can I import data somewhere else, you certainly can. That's why I use Zoho Creator. Zoho allows me to do things like, let me export a spreadsheet, pop it into Zoho, and then have Zapier and Tray.io or Twilio pull from that database. It just gives you another way to bring things in closely. In the center here, I'm looking at some bot applications and text-to-speech. Now, this is for the more advanced user. Again, Google Cloud has bots, Amazon has bots, Twilio has bots, and then if you wanted to really get sophisticated and provide your customer with a mobile app on the far right, BuildFire and Zoho Creator allows you to create mobile apps which are really intended to get your customers working in your environment, and they're so easy to deploy. So hopefully that gives you some things to think about and some places to look for probable solutions. So when we talk about customer engagement and automating customer engagement, the first thing is we want to outline the process. We're going to need to map our process together. So my first recommendation is like doing a report. Let's create an outline first. First, we have to plan our data connections. Where are we getting the data? Can I connect my data seamlessly, or will I need to use another application to make it happen? We also are going to want to define how that data is going to be pushed or pulled. Will it be a manual process, a scheduled process, or will we be using an API to do it in real time? That's my favorite. And then obviously, how will we create the message for sending out and then scheduling the communication? Now, when we're talking about scheduling the communication, don't think of it just as one-way communication. Think of it as bi-directional. In some cases, maybe it is one-way communication where you provide just a link that takes someone directly to your website or to a product or to a service or an appointment calendar. Plan for a response. When you're going through this process, plan for a response even if you don't use it. You want to make sure that if your customer responds, they aren't just lost to the ether, that you have a way of capturing that so you can do some follow-up. Plan a method of reporting activity as well and plan the follow-up activity. And then ultimately, when you have your process mapped, detailed, and in play, you're going to do it over again and again and again. And this is where the magic sort of takes up. So as I mentioned, when you're designing your flow, this is probably one of the things that I'm seeing folks forget. Plan for a response. And ultimately, this is just 4 bullet points on expect a response, especially if you're texting. Clients immediate and kind of the easy, lazy way out is they're going to respond to the communication they just received, even though your communication says do not respond. Manage the response through a flow, a call flow, a text flow, an email flow. And if that is the process you're planning, consider IVR processing and bots. Would it be possible to have a bot intercept the interaction and do some low-level processing, or do I need to opt out to an agent, speak to someone in real time? And ultimately, make it easy for your customer to engage with your facility. The worst thing customers experience, and I myself included, is that if I'm in a process of customer engagement and I can't get to somebody, I tend to get a little annoyed, and that's where my sort of preferences kick in and say, maybe I'll go somewhere else and find an easier route. Customers, and hopefully you're a customer of many services, you know that getting easy access is ultimately what everyone is looking for. So now I want to leave you with a real world example for one of our customers that is doing incident reporting and follow-up. And so we have a couple minutes left here. Let's go ahead and go through this process pretty quickly. So ultimately what happens is my customer calls in and they arrive at an agent. Because they're doing incident reporting, the agent takes the information, which is going to land in the CRM, and I'm going to build this out here. Now, when the information lands in the CRM, ultimately attached to the CRM is a scheduled web service. The web service itself 48 hours later, after an incident is reported, we'll pick up the information to do a follow-up. But at the same time the agent has already grabbed the information, the customer is also sent that information in real time. So as the incident is being reported, they conclude the conversation, the customer will get a real-time text with their detailed information. This happens to be a healthcare client. They'll get the clinic to report to, the incident ID, and some other ancillary information that will be helpful for their personal care. The web service picks up and says 48 hours later, it's going to send a follow-up text. Now, here's the critical part in the text. In the body of the text message, the client allows them a couple of options. Press or reply with a CB for a callback, which in case hits an API, which goes directly into the contact center, but it queues up an agent to speak to the patient or the client directly without the client having to do anything. They simply reply. The other option is that they're just looking to get updated information about their incident. They go to a bot. The bot can easily review information, look at the CRM, and extract details and give them more information. All the while, at any point in time while working with the bot, if I respond with agent or can I speak to an agent will come online. And again, they don't have to call the agent will call them. Or ultimately, in the response, the client can just place a call to the phone number or text the phone number. So this is sort of a view that one of our clients is using. They are using a process that not only captures the inbound data, it orchestrates it through web services for automated follow-up 48 hours. And if the client responds, they've already got pre-built IVR flows that will also offer bot processing, real-time agent access, or a phone call if that's the choice they want to go, including accessing their account manager if that's where they need to go. So this is a really sophisticated customer who's brought all the pieces together in automating the customer engagement strategy. And I wanted to leave you with a couple of solution options that I particularly like that give us an all-in-one. Obviously, when it comes to customer engagement, there are so many pieces of the puzzle and the equation that we need to look at. Having systems that are tailor-made for automation and integration are very helpful. One such application is Genesys Cloud. We provide Genesys Cloud here at Inflow Communications. It's the one that I have found that has some pillars that I really appreciate, which are open API, meaning I can hit other web services easily. A lot of contact center solutions will restrict their application that forces me down a pathway, and I'd prefer to have an open gateway. Twilio is another application that has contact center built in, but also gives you the ability to integrate with any application, flow process management. It really doesn't constrict the user. Both applications allow the user to extend to anywhere in the free world with extending applications and engagement. Now that being said, let's get into a quick summary here. Automating the customer engagement, the process I recommend is first take an inventory of current apps and features that you have today. Let's see what's available to you in your current existing environment and only bring in the pieces that are required or necessary. Oftentimes clients are not using the full capabilities of their applications unbeknownst to them. Next is think about accessing data. Where will we get the data? Where does the data exist? And how will we extract the data? Once you have that orchestrated and put together, it's about scheduling the communication. Decide what your cadence is going to be, weekly, daily, monthly, or even ad hoc. And think about it as two-way communication. So plan for response management. And if you do get a response to your customer, give them all the easy options for bringing that interaction either directly to an agent, to a bot, to another process that just facilitates ease of working with your organization and products. And then ultimately plan for reporting. And I realize we're a couple minutes over here, but let me see if we have any questions that I can address. Luis? I'm going to take that as no questions. And again, if you have questions, here's our contact information. If you don't want to call us, send an email. They will direct the email to me. Again, it's pro bono. I appreciate helping clients leverage what they already have and extending processes. I'm happy to help anyone at any point in time. And with that said, thank you for spending some time with us today. We know how busy your environments are, and I sincerely appreciate you carving out 30 minutes of your day.